Hello everyone, welcome you all. This is Suresh from my SDET Automation channel. Today in this session, we're going to learn about Selenium selectors called Xpath, and we'll see how this XPath will work in our automation and what is the role that it plays in our automation. And in the last session, we have seen how to work with CSS selector, and where we have discussed about the couple of approaches, how we're gonna build our own CSS selectors, and we have seen how we can create using a tool called Selector Sub. So in case if you are new to this session, and you wanted to learn CSS selector, then do watch my earlier session. I will share the link in the description box, and let's get started. An XPath in Selenium is an XML path used for navigation within the HTML structure. So we have a DOM, HTML DOM. So where to navigate within that DOM, we need one path. That path is called as XPath, and that path is divided into two categories. One is absolute path and relative XPath. And this is the most widely asked or frequently asked interview question. How many types of XPath we have? One is absolute XPath and relative XPath, and they may be asked what is the advantage and disadvantages between these two. So absolute XPath is absolutely very fast. It will work very fast. And relative XPath is little difficult to write, and also it is bit delay in finding the path. And the reason is why most of the people use as a relative XPath when compared to the absolute XPath, because we are in an agile model methodology. Application day by day gets changes to based on a user need. So using the absolute path in your automation will be absolute automation. It will make our automation as an absolute, because path changes every time and you have to write or change those XPaths every time. So better to use a relative XPath. So these are the advantages and disadvantages between these two. And let's jump into our application. Let me open Firefox, I mean Chrome browser, and this is the login page I am demoing in this session. And let me open the PyCharm editor. And this is the demo project that we have working so far. And this is the test cases. And I will create one more class called Python class called test cases XPath, right? And I will simply try to write some code here. And this is the common code that we are using in this entire series of Selenium Python beginner series. So every time we write from Selenium, import WebDriver, and then we create a variable called driver to hold WebDriver.chrome. So under that Chrome, I'll provide the path. The path is called as executable path, and I have a driver location within my project. So here I'm storing it, and this is a Chrome driver exe file. I'll right click and copy the path, and which is absolute path, and I will paste it here as I'm on a Windows operating system. So I will correct the path quickly. Right. So as soon as it's done, we have to say driver to make window maximize. So you can use maximize window, and then you have a driver dot get. So this get option is a string type. So you have to provide string URL. So URL is, this is the login URL. So I will give this URL here. Right. So you can go back to our notepad. Right. So I have provided syntax for absolute XPath and relative XPath. In absolute XPath, it is starting from the HTML, so which is a root node, and then followed by body and then form, then input. So there might be thousands of inputs. So every time you have to provide those many input number in the index. And this is relative XPath, and relative XPath is easier to build, and it is little difficult to understand first, but if you learn this, it is easier when compared to the absolute path. So I will go back to the browser and try to inspect anything here. I will inspect this login button, right? So as soon as I open the dev tools, I will open the selector sub tool also. So here, firstly, we will see the absolute path. So to design absolute path, we have to traverse from here HTML. Then this is the next div. I think HTML body, then div, then till this here. So we have to come like this. So it is difficult to write all these things from manually. I will use the tool, which is selector sub tool. I will again inspect the login, right? So where is it? So here we have the absolute path. So absolute path, and if I try to fit it here, and you can see this is a very long title or long path. So it is little difficult to write all these things. So that is the reason I skipped that and I showed you from this tool. So this tool help you to quickly to find all the paths. So this is called as an absolute path. So I will copy this and put it in our, I think it is in PyCharm. So we have to use this symbol. Absolute XPath. Right. This is absolute XPath. Now we will start relative XPath. Relative XPath. And we have few approaches. So we'll discuss those approaches. So one is with an attribute value. So here we are in this button, and this is the login button. And here in the login button, you can see we have attributes called ID we have, and we have name, we have tab index, we have type. So all this we have. So these are all the pink ones are called as the tag name, and we have an attribute which is red color, and attribute value is in blue color, right? So I'm using this button here, so I can use the button. So to find this path, relative path, I will use the button here, and then followed by the attribute, whichever attribute that you like or that you most prefer to. Like generally people try to use the ID, so I will use the ID. So ID equal to login button, right? And here is the login button, I think it play, right? So it is identifying one of one. Now this is a manual way that I used, and from the tool how we can use. So here, as soon as you open this tool, you have this checkboxes here. So you can check on ID and uncheck all options, and you can see here relay to XPath. So whatever I written here in the manually, it has provided the same thing, but it has saved your time. So this is a quicker, and here you need to spend some time, but you have to learn both the ways. So whenever there is a possibility of installing the tool within your organization, you can use this tool. And if there is a no chance of utilizing any tool, then you have to rely on your manually writing. Then you can write like this. So this is the one way. And another way is you can use the two attributes at a time. So I have used one attribute here. I can use one more attribute. So here we have a name, right? So I can use this name equals to login. So I can use two attributes at a time. So this is another way of writing XPath. So here it is showing the best way, but you have to try different ways. Or sometimes what happen, one of one will not be in always. So there might be a chance of getting one of two, two of three. So likewise you will get. So such ways cases you can use this multiple cases. So I will copy this and come back here. So this is the one path, and we have. So this is the one way. So this is using an attributes. Then we have an within this attributes. So I have used here two square braces. I mean two square symbols, square bracket symbols. Now there is a possibility of using approaches called or. I mean either the take this as an path or take that as a path. Or sometimes what happen, I need both ID and name should be in my path. Then only you have to identify such field. Then such cases, then you can remove this square braces in between, and now you can see it is still showing a 0 of 0. It is not even identifying anything on the page, but you can use this or here. So as soon as you put or here, it is trying to identify Either it is going with an ID or either it is going with a name. So whichever is enabled or whichever is locating on the DOM, it will try to identify that first. So this is a OR symbol. So it will say that it's an logical operator or and, right? So there's OR. Now I will show you how it will work with AND. Now you can see here, I will change OR to AND. So now it is still identifying. So it is saying that in this statement, it's saying that we need both ID and name should be present on the DOM, then only click on that button. So if anyone is missing in this, it will fail. It will say that no such element found, or it will throw some different errors based on the DOM behavior. So this is another way of finding. So this is an operators, using operators option. So there is an possibility of using a text. So it is using text. So how we can identify using a text? So it's, let me go back to the application, and here if I inspect this forgot an account. So in the tool it is saying that anchor tag and then says normalize space and then you have a forgot account. So if I click on only text and uncheck the ID, I think it is showing as a best possible way is a normalized space, but I will design with the text, right? Now, this forgotten account is of type anchor tag, so which is an tag anchor, and then you have to use the square brace symbol, and under that you have to type text, and text you have to write in a proper method type. So text and then equal to, so this is, so this has a text called forgotten account. So I will use a complete text here, and using a string approach, I mean string quotation, I can use this. So this is a one way, right? So this is using anchor tag with a text approach. So instead of anchor tag, you can use any of the tags like div, or you can use input, you can use span. So you have a n number of approaches or n number of tags. You can use all of them with the text, right? So if I don't have anything and I wanted to search based on a text only, it may be button, it may be anchor tag, it may be anything. If my text is matched, then go and click here. Then you have a wildcard option called star. So star is an wildcard option, but there is a disadvantage using this. It will slow down the execution speed of the automation. So it will take little more time trying to identify entire DOM. Instead of trying to identify based on a tag, it will try to identify entire DOM. So that's a disadvantage. So you can use a star symbol here. So star followed by text, and then you have this option. So this is the one more option which is available within the text, right? There is one more possibility in the XPath, which is nothing but contains key. Contains key is the one of the most widely used or majorly used in the XPaths to identify most of the locators, because there might be a chance of like contains, I wanted to use this contains to identify text, I wanted to use identify attributes, so I can do on both the options, try to use this option. So I will go back to the application, and now let me go and try to inspect this form field. I will remove this here. So this is an input type, and here you can use the directly input tag or use a wildcard option. I can use a star option, the wildcard option. So star refers to everything. You can see here you have 2005, I mean 258 kind of lines or matchings. It means that it's a wildcard option. So it will identify entire thing what is available on the page. And you can use the contains here. So contains will be all lowercase and it's an English word contains. And then followed by this bracket symbols, and then at the rate. Either you can use ID or name or any other attribute that is there within the identified web element. This is the web element. So there are a name, ID, tab index, placeholder, then you have autocomplete, autofocus. So you have many things here. I will take the placeholder first, right? Instead of ID, I will take a placeholder, and then you have to put a comma separated, then again the string values. So what are the string values within that? So there is a string value of placeholder called this email address or phone number. So it is the same thing that is displaying on this form field, right? So you can use the form field. So it is identifying as one of one. So this is the one approach of using contains. So I will show you one more option using a different name here. So using a name. So the name will be most of the times we will see. So name, and I will remove this entire value. So value is not same. So that is the reason it is not identifying. So I will say name as email, right? It is identified as one of one. Now, what happens? I don't have anything there. I cannot take that attribute within my path or a locator which I am trying to add. So in that cases, you can use a text of it and try to identify that. So here, there is no text for this input. So when you can use the text is when you have this the tag, so input tag. If the input tag has some text under that, then you can use that text. So best way is the login button. I think login button has a text to show in it. So you can see here login. So it is showing us a text here. So you can use this option, and you can also use this sign up for Facebook. So here also it is using a text option. So how you can use that? So I will copy this text from here, and here I will remove this name attribute, and then all. Yeah. Now using contains wildcard option star contains, then you have a text here, text method, and separated by comma, and then you have the text. So this is the text. So now it is identifying one of one. So this is the one way of using a text approach. I think in the tool, it is always showing as normalized space. Let me see, try to use all the options. Right, it is showing as only one option now. Right, using a contains text, you can use this option. So this is one more option to find with the contains key. Now, you have tried all these options, but you still has some difficulty in finding the attributes. Dynamically changing locators, like ID is every time getting changed on every refresh. So how you have to handle such cases? So in XPaths we have one option called starts with. So this is the option that you can use the starts with, and I will show you how this works. And come back to this option, come back to the browser, and now I wanted to try on the starts with option. So using relay to XPath double quotations, double forward slashes, and locate this input field called email. Now I will try on this where ID is there, but it is getting changed every time, or it is changing every time email 1, email 2, email 3, on every refresh it is happening. So how I can identify such cases? Then I will use input here, input, and the square brackets, and at the rate ID. This is normal way we are discussing on starts with, right? So starts with, I have to use explicitly starts with, starts hyphen with. So after using this, again you have to use the bracket symbols, square brackets, and then at the rate ID. id comma the message what it has, the value it has. So the value is email. I think these are not square brackets, these are normal brackets. Right, right. It is started identifying. You can see here. Now, I have used entire the value of ID. I will use three characters or two characters. You can see, even though I used two characters, it is still trying to identify that locator. So this is the advantage which starts with. So in dynamically changing locators, you have ID or a index at the end. Email 1234, email 12345, email 123456. So likewise, you will get on every refresh. So to handle such cases, then you can use this option called starts with. Right. So these are all the options that you have in the first phase of identifying XPaths. And if these are not working, so there are other approaches that I will share in the next session. And let me use any one to close this session. So I will use driver dot find element. I will use a start with option only. So by dot. So I think by I have to import this right by I have to import the by. I think I imported wrong package. I have to import this option by dot xpath comma. So I will use any one of that, any one of the option. So here I can use this option. I think it's throwing error. And this is the one way of handling the strings. So I have used single quotation. So instead of single quotation, I can use the double quotation to handle that error. So this I have created a session in the Python series. You can use that session. So this is send keys. This is accepting a value. So let me put some value number here. After putting that value, I will say driver dot close and time dot sleep 2 seconds. Save and run as this test case. So it has started running. I think it has entered the value and it has closed the browser. Right. So these are all the options, approaches that we have within our application with XPath. So using absolute path, how we gonna traverse with relative XPath, using attribute approach, using locators called and or, using a text approach, using a contains key approach, and start with approach. Dividing XPaths into two categories like first level of paths identifying. So these are the basic ones when you are not trying to find or failed using these approaches, then you can refer to that options. That options I will share in the next session. Thank you for watching. And if the session is helpful for you, do post a like and share with a colleague. And if you have any questions, queries, do post in my comment section. I will help you out. Thank you for watching.